Welcome everyone. To start, you must have at least cut out your front and your back piece. So this is the front piece, and I'll be marking out the wrong face of the front piece. I'll be using my chalk to mark out the wrong face of the front piece like that. After which I'll fold into two and use it to cut out the front cape. So I'll follow that line after folding a piece of fabric into two and placing under the front piece. So I'll just cut following that line like that. Then I will cut the down line to whatever shape I desire. So after cutting that down line to whatever shape I desire, I will also fold by a ½ inch on the down line. So I fold by a ½ inch on the down line, and I used tiny pieces of hemming gum to hold it down. So that is that. I'll be using that front cape to turn the neck of the front piece. So that's the wrong face. So you must mark that out before you do anything, just to be sure. So for the back cape too, that's the wrong face. So I'll place the right face underneath the wrong face of the front piece. So the right face of the front cape underneath the wrong face of the front piece, and I'll make a ½ inch stitch all through the neckline like that, from that point to the other end of the neckline. After making my stitch, which you can see, I'll notch. So that's the stitch. The next thing I'll do is to notch. When you make any curve stitches, if you want it to come out straight, you have to notch before turning it to the right face. So I'll make a notch. My notch will not be as big as a ½ inch because I don't want my notches to touch the sewing line. So I'll just notch all through, and this will aid the bending of the curve. After using the front cape to turn the neck of the front piece, the next stage of this work will be to use my pressing iron to straighten the neck piece. So I'll place my front piece I just finished turning the neck on that folded fabric I want to use for ironing. Then I will make use of my pressing iron to straighten things. The most important thing is just to make sure your front cape is the only thing you are seeing at the front, and the front piece is the only thing you are seeing at the back. That is, the sewing line should be the center line between the front cape and the front piece. So when you finish ironing, you should not be seeing the front piece on the neckline. You should only be seeing the front cape. And when you look at it from the back, you should only be seeing the front piece. That is just the basic essence of the ironing. So you're just using your iron to straighten things and make sure what is supposed to be seen at the front is the only thing seen at the front, and what is supposed to be seen from the back is the only thing seen from the back. After straightening things, I'll make use of tiny pieces of my hemming gum to hold things down. So I'll just place those tiny pieces of my hemming gum underneath the front cape at strategic positions like that. Then I'll make use of my pressing iron to join them to the fabric. So if my iron is hot enough, it should be able to hold down the front cape and the front piece. Using an hemming gum makes your sewing process easier. So when you are sewing the downline of the front cape to the front piece, it becomes a very easy process. But not every time I advise the use of hemming gum, because if peradventure you make a mistake, it will be almost impossible for you to get your outfit to look good again because the stains of the hemming gum will always be there. So that's the finished work you're seeing for the front piece. So the neck of the front piece is done. I'll just sew on the downline of the front cape like that if I want to, but I will not be sewing because I just want to keep on going forward. So going forward, we'll start working on the back piece, and once you are done cutting the back piece, the next thing is to cut the back cape. You use the same process you use in cutting the front cape to cut the back cape. That is folding the fabric into two and using the shape of the neckline of the back piece and the shoulder line, also the armhole line, to cut out the piece. Then for the downline of the back piece, I just cut it out straight and I folded by 3/4 inch. So I'll be marking out the wrong face of the back piece and the wrong face of the back cape. So I'll place the front part of the back cape on the wrong face of the back piece, and I'll make my 1/2 inch stitch. After sewing the neckline by a 1/2 inch, I would also notch just like I did for the front piece. You make sure your notches are not as big as 1/2 inch because you don't want your notches to touch the sewing line of the neckline. So I'll just make my notches all through like that. Like I said earlier, you notch any curved part you sew so that the turning process on the front face will be very easy. So even before I use my pressing iron, after notching, you would see the turning process is a little bit perfect, but not totally perfect because your pressing iron will just make everything stay the way it should be. So after using my pressing iron, there's almost no need to do any alteration again. So I'll just use my pressing iron to straighten the left and the right side of the neckline like that. After which I'll go straight to the process of joining the front and the back piece together through the shoulder line. To join the front and the back piece together, the first thing I will make sure of is to make sure the front cape and the front piece are held tightly together. So I'll check if my hemming gum actually did a good job, and from what I'm seeing, they were not tightly held together. So I'll be making use of my pressing iron to hold both together again. So I'll just increase the hotness of the iron and I'll join both together again, because while you are joining the front and the back piece, you don't want the front cape and the front piece to be separated. You want them to be tightly fixed together. So if you're having issues using hemming gum, you can just go straight to sewing the front cape to the front piece. That is through the downline of the front cape. You can just sew both together. But I just want to move forward and I don't want to go to the sewing iron to sew the front cape on the front piece. So I'll just make use of my pressing iron to make sure the hemming gum is holding both the front cape and the front piece together tightly before I start joining the front piece to the back piece. And to join the front piece to the back piece, the process is just very straightforward. The process is just making sure you place the front piece on the neckline, on the shoulder part of the neckline, in between the back piece and the back cape. So you place both the front piece and the front cape in between the back piece and the back cape. So the way you do it is you separate the back piece from the back cape and you place the front piece in between both, making sure the neckline of the front is touching the neck point of the back as well. Then you use the cape to cover it up like that. I'll do the same for the left side and also for the right side. And after covering up, I'll just make a 1/2 inch stitch from that neck point to the shoulder part, to the armhole part like that. So after covering both, making sure the front is in between the back and the back cape, I'll just make my 1/2 inch stitch. So after doing both for the left and the right side of the shoulder line, you can see what we got. So I'll just turn out the back cape like that. Then I'll make use of my pressing iron to just straighten the shoulder line. So what I'll do next is just to make sure I use my pressing iron to make sure everything is well placed, so there's no lagging anywhere at all. So you could see the finished work is already coming up. I'll just use my pressing iron to straighten the other part as well. After which, I'll just go straight to my sewing machine and sew the downline of the front cape to the front piece and the downline of the back cape to the back piece. So that is my neckline totally toned. So not every time you use piping to tone your neckline. So if I want, I would also use the hemming gum to hold things down before sewing. As I noted earlier, not every time you use hemming gum, if you are 100% sure you're not making a mistake, you can use hemming gum. But if you have any doubts, don't use hemming gum, because if you use hemming gum, correction will be almost impossible because the stains of the hemming gum will remain there. So I'll make use of my hemming gum in holding things down before going straight to the sewing machine to do the sewing of the downline of my front and back cape on my front and back pieces. So after doing that, I would have succeeded in turning the neckline of my attire completely.